So the 2026 NBA season, it's officially here, and because of that, it's a great time to come out with my predictions for how I think this year is going to play out. I'm going to give my standings predictions, my playoff predictions, and who I think wins the championship. And finally, I'm going to end it off with my award picks. But yeah, guys, before we do get started, of course, make sure you guys go ahead and hit the like button if you guys end up enjoying the video, since it really does help out the channel. And of course, subscribe if you guys are new and you guys enjoy content like this, and so you don't miss out on any new videos. But without further ado, let's go ahead and get things started. Okay, so we're going to start things off with my Eastern Conference standing predictions, and we're going to go worst to first. So at number 15, I got the Brooklyn Nets. Look, not much really has to be said. I know the Nets last year were expected to be, like a 13 to 15 seed, and they did overachieve a little bit. They ended up being like the 12 seed instead of, again, the 13 or 15 seed. But I think that's going to change this year. I think the Nets are going to be horrible. I mean, this team really isn't that good. They're still rebuilding, and this season, it's just going to be about, developing young guys and seeing who can be a part of the future. So that's all I have to say about the Nets. At 14, I got the Washington Wizards. Again, no surprises here. The Wizards, they suck as well. I mean, they are a rebuilding team, and they do have a lot of young talent, and they do have some, solid veterans as well. But again, the Wizards, they're just not a very good team at the moment. And again, I think this year in 2026, it's going to be about, again, developing young guys and seeing who can be a part of the future. Now at number 13, I got the Charlotte Hornets. The Hornets, look, I would put them higher. I do think there is a chance that they make the play-in tournament if they stay healthy, but look, I can't do it with the Hornets. I mean, LaMelo Ball, he's a good player, and again, if he can stay healthy, I do think the Hornets can be a solid team, but I'm sorry, LaMelo Ball is one of the most injury-prone players in the NBA, and because of that, I'm just not counting on him staying healthy, and along with that, Charlotte's front court, it is pretty concerning. So yeah, the Hornets, again, if they do stay healthy, they could be like the 9 or the 10 seed, maybe the 8 seed, but again, I'm not counting on LaMelo Ball staying healthy, and if that's the case, then the Hornets are going to suck yet again. But at number 12, I have the Chicago Bulls. The Bulls, I mean, they're just below average. They're mid. And this year, I think they are going to start to kind of truly tank, something that they really haven't done the last few years, despite the fact that, a lot of people are saying that they should, tank, which, I mean, they're right. But yeah, the point is, I don't think the Bulls are going to be that good. I mean, could they make the play-in tournament? Yes, they could, but I don't think they will. I think this year they are going to kind of start to focus a little bit more on some younger guys. I think Josh Giddey is going to continue, what he was doing in the second half of last year. And I think Matas Buzelis is going to be in for a very big second season. I think he will break out. So yeah, the Bulls, I mean, they're just, again, a very below average team, and I don't think they're going to be that good. I don't think they're going to be the 14 or 15 seed. I think they are clearly better than the Wizards and Nets, but again, I don't think the Bulls are that great. At number 11, I do have the Miami Heat. The Heat, they could easily make the play-in tournament. I don't think the Heat outright suck. You got Bam Adebayo, you got Tyler Hero, you got a pretty solid supporting cast, and I think Kel'el Ware, he is going to break out in his second year. I really like him a lot as a player. And Eric Spoelstra is obviously a very good coach, and defensively, I do expect Miami to be pretty good, but the Heat's offense, it is pretty bad, and the fact of the matter is, they lack a number one option. If they did have a number one option, then yeah, the Heat would be a really good team. But, because they don't have Jimmy Butler anymore and they don't have a guy like him, well, the Heat, I don't think they're going to be all that good. I think they are going to be in the mix for the play-in tournament. And again, they could be like the 7 to 10 seed. But ultimately, I just felt like a few of the teams above them, I think they're going to be a little bit better. And I think the Heat are just going to be very mediocre in 2026. All I have to say about Miami. Now at number 10, I got the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers obviously made the finals last year, but unfortunately 2026 will be a throwaway season for them because Tyrese Halliburton is going to miss all of it with a torn Achilles that he suffered in the NBA Finals. And the Pacers roster, it's obviously not terrible. I do think there is a possibility that Indiana, does outright suck if they choose to like just truly tank this year. But, for now, I'm just going to assume that the Pacers are mostly healthy and that they are going to try, their best, this upcoming regular season. And if that is the case, I think Indiana will be in the mix for the play-in tournament, especially just given how weak the Eastern Conference is. But yeah, man, there really isn't much to say about the Pacers besides the fact that, again, this year it's going to be a throwaway season because Halliburton is out for the entire year. And I don't think anyone with half a brain would disagree with that. But at number 9, I have the Boston Celtics. I think the Celtics and Pacers are kind of interchangeable, but yeah, man, the Boston Celtics, like the Indiana Pacers, 2026 is going to be a throwaway year because Jason Tatum is probably going to miss, all of this upcoming season. I know he's had a very good Achilles rehab, but Jason Tatum is still going to be out for a very long time, and he's going to, at the bare minimum, miss a majority of the regular season. And even when he does come back, Boston probably is going to be, again, in this play-in range, and Jason Tatum is probably going to be rusty as well, and I don't think he's going to make that much of an impact this year. So yeah, the Boston Celtics, again, not much else to say about them besides the fact that this year will be a throwaway year. If they do try in the regular season, they could be a play-in tournament team, but who knows? There's also a possibility that they just choose to flat-out tank. So yeah, man, that's all I have to say about the Boston Celtics, kind of like the Indiana Pacers. At number 8, I got the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are a pretty interesting team. Last year, they weren't that good. I believe they were the 11th seed in the Eastern Conference. And Toronto does actually have a fairly talented team. You got Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram, who you traded for at the deadline last year. You got RJ Barrett as well. Toronto's team, and they got a solid supporting cast as well. So yeah, Toronto's team isn't that bad. The only question is, how do these pieces all fit together? And I think the Raptors, I do think they will be decent this year. I think they will be a play-in team. The question is, I guess just how good can they be, and how good, how do all these guys fit? And I really do think that if they can find a way to make it work with this roster and all these guys, fit seamlessly, then the Raptors could be maybe a little bit higher than this. But for now, I'm just going to put the Raptors at the 8th seed. I think this is a good place for them. I think they'll be a play-in team. They could make the playoffs as a lower seed, but chances are they'll be a first-round exit at best. Number 7, I got the Philadelphia 76ers. The 76ers, they are a true wild card simply because of health. If everyone is healthy and everyone plays, to the best of their abilities, then Philly truly should be a top 3 to 5 seed in this conference. But look, Joel Embiid and Paul George are super duper injury prone, and you can't really count on them to stay, healthy. So I'm just gonna assume this year that they stay, Embiid and Paul George stay healthier than they did last year, and that they're moderately healthy this year. And I think the Sixers will be better than they were in 2025. But again, you just can't trust those two to be healthy. And if those two aren't healthy, then that will hold Philadelphia back, by a lot, obviously. So yeah, the 76ers, I'm just going to go with the 7th seed for now. But again, if they do stay healthy, I think they should be a very good team. At number 6, I got the Milwaukee Bucks. The Bucks at this point kind of just feel like, Giannis Antetokounmpo and then an okay roster. I don't think they are a true contender, especially just because, they got Doc Rivers as their head coach. And as we know, Doc Rivers is just addicted to losing in the second round of the playoffs. But yeah, man, the Bucks, I know some people are very low on them and might have them a little bit lower, and I guess that could happen. But the Eastern Conference, again, it's very weak, and at the end of the day, they still got Giannis Antetokounmpo, and they still got, their team, even though it's not exactly amazing, it doesn't outright suck. And Doc Rivers, while he is a playoff choker, I think he is a fine regular season coach. So yeah, the Bucks, I think the 6th seed is fair for them. At number 5, I have the Atlanta Hawks. The Hawks, they had a very eventful offseason. You added Kristaps Porzingis, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Luke Kennard as well. You also drafted that guy Asa Newell from Georgia. So the Hawks, I feel like this is probably their best team since their 2021 squad that went all the way to the Eastern Conference Finals back then. And this team, the Atlanta Hawks, again, if they stay healthy, they could actually be pretty good. And I feel like this is the year for them to actually go on a deep playoff run. It's just very dependent on Kristaps Porzingis' health. And unfortunately, Kristaps Porzingis is just not a guy you can count on to stay healthy. So kind of like how I'm doing with the 76ers, I'm going to say he'll be moderately healthy. And I do think the Hawks will actually be a pretty good team this year instead of being like really mid like they've been the last few seasons. You got, again, Trae Young is really good, and he's got a pretty solid team around him. So again, as long as Kristaps Porzingis stays like, moderately healthy, the Hawks should be a solid team, and maybe this is the year that they go on a deep playoff run. At number 4, I have the Detroit Pistons. The Pistons were obviously the biggest surprise in the league last year, and they went from one of the worst teams in the NBA all the way to the 6th seed. And yes, they lost to the Knicks in the first round of the playoffs, but I mean overall, it was a great season for them. And I mean they did make things kind of competitive against New York, who went all the way to the ECF. So the Pistons, I think they're going to continue what they did last year. I think they will be pretty good in the regular season. You got Cade Cunningham, who's obviously really good, and I think he'll be even better in 2026. The team around him is also not that bad. I think a lot of their young guys are going to continue to improve. Jaden Ivey, I know he is going to miss the first few weeks of the year, but hopefully he can remain mostly healthy after that, because I do think Jaden Ivey, if he can be really good, then the Pistons should be that much more dangerous. And now that they've got a year of playoff experience under their belt, again, the Pistons, I think they got a real shot at making some noise in the playoffs. But yeah, the Pistons, I think they will be pretty good once again, and I think, they'll be a top 4 to 6 seed in the East. At number 3, I have the Orlando Magic. The Magic last year were pretty underwhelming, and a large part of it was because of injuries, but also their offense was dog shit, and that's the thing with the Orlando Magic. Like, we know that they're going to be a really good defensive team. The problem is, can their offense be improved? Can their offense be good? Because their offense the last 2 years, it's been some of the worst. They've been one of the worst offensive teams in the NBA the last 2 years. So if they really want to make some noise in the playoffs and make it past the first round, they got to improve their offense, and they really do need to improve their spacing. They did trade for Desmond Bane this offseason, and I do like that move quite a bit. Desmond Bane is obviously a great defender, so yeah, it's there, but also he's a really good three-point shooter, but at the end of the day, he is just one guy. So I think a lot of their three-point shooting is going to come down to internal improvement. Like, can Jalen Suggs have a bounce-back season from the three-point line? Can Paolo and Franz improve as three-point shooters? And can the other guys do it as well? And they also drafted Chase Richardson in this past year's NBA draft. I don't know how much playing time he'll get this year, but if he does get a solid amount of playing time, hopefully, he can be a solid floor spacer, because if he is, then that would go a long way in improving this Magic offense. But yeah, the Magic, I do think if they are mostly healthy, they should be a pretty good team. Again, I think their defense is going to be really good. I think Paolo Banchero is going to continue to ascend as one of the better players in the league. Same thing with Franz Wagner. It's just very dependent on how much improved their offense and shooting is. Now at number 2, I got the New York Knicks. I don't think this is going to shock anybody. The Knicks are obviously a really good team, and truthfully, I think they're going to be the 1 or the 2 seed in the conference. Maybe they fall a little bit to 3, but chances are, again, they're going to be a top 3 to 4 seed in the East. You got Jalen Brunson, who's one of the best players in the league. Same thing with Karl Anthony Towns. The supporting cast around them isn't that bad. Their depth is maybe a little bit questionable, but especially with Malcolm Brogdon unfortunately retiring for them. But again, the Knicks, they're a really good team, and as long as they stay mostly healthy, I think they're going to be a top 3 to 4 seed in the East. They also got Mike Brown as their head coach after firing Tom Thibodeau, and maybe he does prove to be the guy to get them over the hump. So yeah, that's all I have to say about the Knicks. But number 1, I got the Cleveland Cavaliers. You could have the Cavs again at maybe 2 or 3, kind of like the Knicks. I think the Cavs are going to be just fine in the regular season. I think they're going to be a top 3 to 4 seed in the East. They got a really talented starting 5. I mean, their depth is all right as well. They did add Lonzo Ball, and Lonzo Ball, he's kind of like a low-risk, high-reward type player. Obviously, he struggled a lot with injuries the past few years and really hasn't played a ton because of it. But maybe he does stay healthy this year, and maybe he does prove to be a very valuable contributor to this Cavaliers team. But, for the Cavaliers, I trust them to be good in the regular season. At this point, I'm just wondering, can they make some noise in the playoffs, and can they just not disappoint? Because the last few years, they've been really disappointing in the playoffs, especially last year. I mean, last season, they looked like one of the best teams, in the NBA, and they looked primed to make it to the NBA Finals and maybe win a championship. But they ended up losing in the second round to the Indiana Pacers, which was really, really disappointing. So, yeah, man, the Cavaliers, I think they're going to be just fine in the regular season. This point, they just got to show up in the playoffs, because if they have another disappointing playoff run, I think this roster is going to be in for a major shakeup. But that's the East for you guys. Now we got the Western Conference. Now at number 15, I got the Utah Jazz. Look, no surprises here. The Jazz, they're not a very good team. They got quite a bit of young talent, and you do have guys like Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler, who are like a little bit older, but they are pretty good players. But the Utah Jazz, in my opinion, again, this year's it's going to be about, again, developing young players and seeing who can be a part of the future. And maybe at the deadline, they trade guys like Lauri Markkanen and Walker Kessler. Only time is going to tell. But yeah, the Jazz at 15 really shouldn't surprise anybody. Number 14, I got the New Orleans Pelicans. Look, I'm sorry. I'm not trusting the Pelicans. I'm not trusting Zion Williamson to stay healthy. I know he looks kind of slim, but I'm not being fooled by that shit. Zion Williamson is obviously really damn injury prone, and if Zion isn't healthy, this Pelicans team is going to suck ass. And I'm not counting, like the Hornets, I'm not counting on Zion Williamson to be healthy. Because of that, I think the Pelicans are going to be dog shit. But at number 13, I got the Phoenix Suns. Look, the Phoenix Suns are just not that good of a team. They could truthfully be the 14 seed, but again, I think the Pelicans are going to be worse. The Suns, I mean, again, they just aren't that good. They obviously had a very big offseason, moving on from Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal. They got Jalen Green and Dillon Brooks in that Kevin Durant trade. Devin Booker is obviously still really good. They made some additions at center by trading for Mark Williams, and they also drafted Kaman Malawach. I don't know how much playing time Kaman Malawach is going to get this year, but still a notable addition. But yeah, man, the Suns, I'm just not very high on them. Their defense, I think, is still going to be really bad, and they still lack a true point guard. And this team is also just not that. I don't think it's super talented outside of Devin Booker. And the Western Conference, with how tough it is, yeah, it's going to be hard for the Suns to make some noise. But at number 12, I got the Sacramento Kings. The Kings, I mean, it really does suck. Like, just 2-3 years ago in 2023, they were top 3 seed in the West, but ever since then, it's just been downhill. I mean, the year after that, they missed the play-in tournament, and then last year, it kind of just crumbled apart. I mean, they traded De'Aaron Fox mid-season, and they made it to the play-in tournament, but they missed the playoffs. But yeah, man, the Kings, they're mid. I think they could make the play-in tournament, but ultimately, I think they're gonna barely miss out, just largely due to the fact that the West, it's just super loaded, and their defense is absolutely terrible. Like, outside of Keegan Murray and like Keon Ellis, they don't have very many good defenders. So yeah, man, the Kings, they're gonna be fine. I don't think they're gonna outright suck, but I don't think they're gonna be that good. Now at number 11, we got the Dallas Mavericks. Yes, I do have the Mavericks just missing out on the play-in tournament. I know this is going to shock some people. Some people are pretty high on the Mavericks. They might have them a little bit higher, like maybe like the 7 to 9 seed, something like that. But look, there's a limited number of spots. Not everyone can make it to the play-in tournament or the playoffs, and unfortunately, someone is going to miss it. And I think it's going to be the Dallas Mavericks. Like, they got a really good front court, and they obviously got Cooper Flagg. But Cooper Flagg, look, for as good of a prospect as he was, and even though I think he'll be great as a rookie, there's only so much he can do. And Anthony Davis, while he is very good, we know that he is made out of glass. And the Mavericks front court, while it is super good, their backcourt, it is very concerning, especially given the fact that Kyrie Irving is going to miss, a majority of the regular season, recovering from like I believe it's a torn ACL, not a torn Achilles. But yeah, I believe it's a torn ACL. He is going to miss a majority of the regular season because of that. And ultimately, I do think that will, hinder the Dallas Mavericks. I think they will be in the play-in conversation pretty much all season long. But ultimately, I think they're going to barely miss out. But I will say, if you do have them higher than this, I can't really blame you. Now at number 10, I got the Portland Trailblazers. I made a video on the Blazers, which absolutely blew up, by the way, so thank you guys so much for that. Let's hope we can do the same for this video. But yeah, man, if you guys saw that video, I'm very high on the Portland Trailblazers this year. I think they're going to continue what they did in the second half of last year. I think their defense is going to be really good. I think Shaedon Sharpe is going to be absolutely amazing this year. And I think he's going to be I think he's going to be much better than he was last year. I think he's really going to break out. I think their offense is going to be a lot better. I think a lot of their young players are going to take leaps. I really like the addition of Jrue Holiday. So, yeah, man, the Portland Trailblazers, I think they are going to be like, last year's Rockets or the 2024 Magic. I think they are going to be that one team that goes from, not so good to, well, pretty good. And I do think maybe the Blazers could be a little bit higher than this, but I'll put them at 10 for now. I think the Blazers, again, I think they're going to be quite solid, going to be a great defensive team. Really just comes down to their offense, and I think their offense will be fine. And again, I think Shaedon Sharpe and a lot of their young guys, they're going to take some pretty good steps forward. And ultimately, I got the Blazers making it to the play-in tournament. Now at number 9, I got the Memphis Grizzlies. The Grizzlies just a couple of years ago were the 2 seed in the West, for back-to-back years, and I don't know. I feel like they've just been like downhill for them since 2023. Like last year in 2025, they were actually pretty high up, in the West standings for like a majority of the year. But then in the last few months, they kind of just free-falled, and they ended up being the 8th seed. And unsurprisingly, they got whooped by the Thunder. But Memphis, I will admit, I think there is a possibility that they could be like a top 5 or 6 seed in the Western Conference. But I don't know, man. The Grizzlies, they're not bad. They got Ja Morant. They got Triple J. The supporting cast around them is also not that bad either. They also do have a new head coach as well. But I don't know. Part of me does, wonder, is Ja Morant and Triple J, are either of them good enough at the moment to lead a team to a championship? And along with that, the Grizzlies are very injury prone. So it's just, because of all that, it's just kind of hard for me to really believe in them to be, like an amazing team, especially in such a stacked Western Conference. But yeah, the Grizzlies, again, they're fine, but I don't think they're exactly amazing. At number 8, I got the San Antonio Spurs. The Spurs last year, a lot of people were hyped after they traded for De'Aaron Fox and thought they would take off and make the playoffs, but unfortunately, Wemby and De'Aaron Fox did suffer season-ending injuries in the middle of the year. And but the San Antonio Spurs, I feel like if they do stay healthy, they should be pretty good. You obviously got Victor Wembanyama, you got De'Aaron Fox. They got a really good supporting cast, quite a bit of young players and young talent. Maybe those guys can take some leaps, and they did draft Dylan Harper in this past year's NBA draft along with Carter Bryant. I'm not sure how much playing time Carter Bryant will get this year, but the point is the Spurs, they got a very nice team, and as long as they stay healthy, the San Antonio Spurs should be really good. I think their defense is going to be really good. I guess I'm just going to question, how good is their offense, and it's no longer Greg Popovich as the Spurs head coach. They got Mitch Johnson, so how good of a coach is Mitch Johnson going to be? But yeah, man, the Spurs, I think they will be pretty good. I think they'll make the play-in tournament at least, and truthfully, they could be a little bit higher than this. I wouldn't be surprised if they're like the 7th seed, the 6th seed, maybe even the 5th seed or the 4th seed if they are good enough. But yeah, man, the Spurs, they got a really good team. They just got to stay healthy. At number 7, I got the Los Angeles Lakers. Look, the Lakers, they're fine. They're not a bad team. Obviously, you got Luka Doncic, you got LeBron, but the team around them is pretty suspect. I know they did sign DeAndre Ayton to be their starting center, but DeAndre Ayton, he's super duper mid, and I don't know how much of a difference maker he really is going to be. And along with that, LeBron James is already dealing with some injuries, so he is going to be out till like mid-November, I believe. So, and LeBron James, I just have a feeling that he might struggle a little bit with injuries this year. And when you factor in that and how mediocre the Lakers supporting cast is, I don't think LA is going to be amazing in the regular season, but they're not going to be total dog shit. They're definitely going to make the play-in, and they'll definitely make the playoffs. They got LeBron and Luka. They're going to be good enough to do that. I guess the real question is, can they make some noise? That's going to be the real question, but pretty much all I have to say about the Lakers. Now at number 6, I got the Golden State Warriors. The Warriors last season, they made a mid-season trade for Jimmy Butler, which really saved their year. They ended up, being the 7th seed in the West. They beat the Rockets in the first round before they faced the Timberwolves, where they lost to them in like 5 or 6 games. And I know Stephen Curry got injured during that series, but you could argue that Minnesota still would have won, even if Stephen Curry was healthy. But the Warriors, now that they got a full season of Jimmy Butler, I will say he does kind of coast in the regular season, which definitely would affect their regular season success. But the Warriors got a nice team with Stephen Curry, Jimmy Butler. They signed Al Horford. You got Draymond Green, DeAnthony Melton, Jonathan Kuminga, I guess. You got Moses Moody as well. I mean, the supporting cast around them isn't, around Steph and Jimmy isn't that bad. And you got Steve Kerr as your head coach. I'll admit, Golden State didn't do a crap ton this offseason, largely because of the whole Jonathan Kuminga fiasco. And I don't know what's going to happen with Jonathan Kuminga. He's just a very weird player. He's just one of those guys who go, he has those, momentary, he goes on those hot streaks, and then you think, hey, he could really be something, but then he just disappoints you, and he goes back to being, not very good. So who knows what happens with Jonathan Kuminga? Maybe they do trade him at the deadline. I really don't know, but either way, Golden State, they're not a bad team. I think they should be good in the regular season. They could be a little bit better than the 6th seed, but I feel like the playoffs is going to be the real, how do I put it? I guess that, I don't know if it's going to be the real test, but I guess that's when we'll really see, I guess just how good the Warriors are, because I do feel like the Warriors could just be one of those teams that maybe coast a little bit in the regular season, but then in the playoffs they turn it on and they go on a very big run. So yeah, man, Golden State, they're not a bad team at all, and I think 6 is a good place for them. At number 5, I got the Minnesota Timberwolves. The Timberwolves last year, they started the season off pretty bad, but then they picked it up. They ended up being the 6th seed in the West, but they beat the Lakers in 5 games in the first round. Then they faced the Warriors, who I mentioned before, beat them, and then they faced the Thunder, who they got absolutely manhandled by. But the Timberwolves, last year wasn't too bad, all things considered. Their defense, it should still be really good. You got Anthony Edwards. Rudy Gobert's declining a little bit, I guess, but he's still a very good player. Julius Randle was quite good for Minnesota last year, both in the regular season and in the playoffs, which is really nice to see, because Julius Randle before always struggled in the playoffs. But, outside of that Thunder series, Julius Randle was quite good, and I think the Timberwolves, they should be solid in the regular season as long as they don't coast or they don't go through any really bad stretches. I guess the big X factor is going to be that point guard position, because Mike Conley, look, he's a fine player, but he's really old and he is declining, and I want to see Rob Dillingham take a major leap. If Rob Dillingham can take a major leap and maybe he becomes the Wolves starting point guard and he reaches that level, that would be really big for them. So yeah, man, the Timberwolves, they should be a pretty good team, and that's really all I have to say about them. But at number 4, I got the Los Angeles Clippers. Last year, the Clippers, they were actually pretty good, even though a lot of people were kind of low on them. Kawhi Leonard, he stayed relatively healthy. James Harden was really good. Their role players played very well, especially Ivica Zubac, who's established himself as one of the better centers in the league. He was top 3, I believe, in most improved player voting, which he deserved. I believe he also made an all defense team, and point is, Ivica Zubac was really good. Unfortunately, the Clippers, they fell to the Denver Nuggets in the first round of the playoffs, but I think the Clippers should be really good in the regular season once again, as long as they stay mostly healthy. Again, I'll admit, Kawhi Leonard is pretty injury prone, so I don't know. Counting on him to stay healthy, it's definitely maybe not the best bet, but I'm just gonna assume Kawhi Leonard is moderately healthy, this year. I mean, again, to be fair, last year he wasn't that injury prone. So yeah, the Clippers, I think they will be solid. You got Kawhi Leonard, you got James Harden, you got a really good supporting cast and a very deep team around them, and they added guys like John Collins, Brooke Lopez, and Bradley Beal this offseason. And I know a lot of people joke about them being a retirement home. They also added Chris Paul as well. I forgot to mention that. And yeah, people joke about them being a retirement home. And to be fair, they got an old-ass team. But the Clippers, they aren't a bad team. Again, as long as they stay moderately healthy, the Clippers should be pretty good. Now at number 3, I got the Houston Rockets. The Rockets were obviously, they were extremely good last year. I know earlier I said the Pistons were the biggest surprise in the NBA in 2025. But you could argue it was the Rockets, because they went from the 10 or 11 seed all the way to the 2 seed. And that was with they had a really good defense, but their offense was absolute dog shit, and they really lacked a number one scoring option. But they traded for Kevin Durant, and Kevin Durant, look, man, just even though he is really old, he's still one of the best players in the league, and he's greatly going to improve that offense, and he will give Houston like a clear-cut number one option. And they also got even deeper by adding guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and Clint Capella as well. So the Rockets, I think their defense is going to be really good once again, and I think their offense should be much better as well. I think it's going to be at least average, and Amen Thompson, I think he's going to take a big leap. I think some of their other young guys will take a leap, especially Reed Shepherd. I do know Fred VanVleet. Unfortunately, he will miss all of this upcoming season with a torn ACL, which is definitely a big blow, but the Rockets, they're still a very good team, and I think they are going to be one of the best teams in the West and one of the best teams in the NBA. But number 2, I got my team, the Denver Nuggets. The Nuggets last year had a bit of an underwhelming regular season. They ended the regular season on a very bad note. They fired their head coach, in their ex-head coach in Michael Malone, and they also fired Calvin Booth as well. And they ended up being the 4th seed in the West, but they beat the Clippers in the first round. Then they played the Thunder, and yes, they did lose, but they gave the Thunder an absolute run for their money, and they performed way better than most people expected. And they gave the Thunder, one of the best fights they dealt with, in their title run. So yeah, man, the Denver Nuggets, they still got, they had a really good offseason. They traded for Cam Johnson. They traded MPJ for Cam Johnson. They got deeper by adding guys like Bruce Brown and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Jonas Valanciunas. In fact, I made a whole video on them, so I guess you guys can check it out. A card should pop up. It should pop up soon. But yeah, man, the Denver Nuggets, I think they are going to be in for a much better regular season. They still got Nikola Jokic. They got a really good starting 5, and I think their bench is going to be a lot better this upcoming season. And they also got a full season with their new head coach, David Adelman. So yeah, man, the Denver Nuggets, they're going to be really good once again, and who knows, maybe they are the 1 seed in the West. But at number 1, I got the Oklahoma City Thunder. No shockers here, the reigning champs. The Thunder, they returned virtually the same team as they had last year, and that team was obviously really damn good. And in fact, Chet Holmgren, he missed a good portion of the regular season last year, so who knows how good they're going to be this year, assuming he does stay mostly healthy. But yeah, the Thunder, they're going to be absolutely amazing in the regular season. I think they're going to be like the 2 seed in the West, at worst, and maybe some of their guys, they do take some steps forward in their game, and if that happens, then the Thunder, they could be even more lethal. But yeah, man, that's really all I have to say about OKC. So now that we got the standings out of the way, let's now go over my playoff predictions. I'm going to start things off with the Eastern Conference. So in the play-in, I got the Pacers beating the Celtics and the 76ers beating the Raptors. And then ultimately, I got the Raptors beating the Pacers. But in the actual playoffs, in the first round, I have the Cavs over the Raptors. Then I got the Knicks over the 76ers. The Pistons over the Bucks, and then I got the Magic over the Hawks. Then in the second round, I got the Magic beating the Cavaliers and the Pistons beating the Knicks. And in the conference finals, I have the Orlando Magic beating the Detroit Pistons. Now as for the West, in the play-in tournament, I got the Blazers over the Grizzlies, the Warriors over the Spurs, and then I got the Spurs beating the Blazers. In the actual playoffs, first round, I got the Thunder beating the Spurs, the Nuggets beating the Warriors, the Rockets beating the Lakers, the Timberwolves beating the Clippers. In the second round, I got the Timberwolves beating the Thunder, then I got the Nuggets beating the Rockets, and in the conference finals, I got the Nuggets beating the Timberwolves. And that sets us up with the finals of the Nuggets and the Magic, and I know I'm a little bit biased, but I think a lot of you guys would agree with me, if this were the NBA Finals. I got the Nuggets winning in 5 games, Finals MVP. It's going to be Nikola Jokic. And with all of that out of the way, I'm now going to go over my award picks. MVP, I got Nikola Jokic. Defensive player of the year, I got Victor Wembanyama. Rookie of the year, I got Cooper Flagg. Sixth man of the year, I got DeAndre Hunter. Most improved player, I got Shaedon Sharpe. Coach of the year, I'm going Quinn Snyder. And then clutch player of the year, I'll go Trae Young. But that's going to be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me. Again, make sure you guys like and subscribe. And check me out on social media. The links to my Twitter and Instagram are in the description below. But without further ado, I'm out, you guys.